Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. The plot of Hope and Carter's breakup is revealed. According to Tuesday, April 29's Bold and the Beautiful recap, Katie Logan overheard too much, exposing the Hope Logan and Carter Walton split plot. On Tuesday's B&B program, she proceeded to revel in the aftermath of her moment of fame at Brooke Logan's residence. Eric Forrester, who couldn't wait to go to the office and speak with Ridge Forrester, was there to join Katie in celebrating. Even though he had a lot of respect for Taylor Hayes, Eric was certain that Ridge would end up with Brooke. Following Eric's departure, Katie provided Brooke some comforting forecasts on Taylor's grip on Ridge loosening. Katie was certain that Ridge was on the verge of a reunion with her and was putting Brooke's betrayal behind him. Taylor was depressed and unhappy at the Forrester estate due to the excessive amount of publicity around Brooke. A lot of attention was paid to nostalgia, and some media even referred to Brooke and Ridge as the first fashion pair. Ridge tried his best to minimize the situation and assured Taylor that it had no bearing on his feelings for her or their romance. After Ridge left, Steffi Forrester could sense her mother was concerned about Brooke regaining Ridge, so she made an effort to allay her worries. Daphne Rose tried to encourage Carter to put Hope out of his mind and concentrate on their own future in the showroom, but he resisted her repeated kisses. After seeing the two of them for a while, Zend Forrester Dominguez privately questioned Daphne on whether or not she had genuine feelings for Carter. Since Daphne arrived in town as part of a scheme with Steffi, Zend essentially admitted how chaotic everything was. As Zend described how Daphne was plotting with Steffi to split up Hope and Carter, Katie came around the corner and overheard. Since more than just Carter and Daphne would be impacted, Zend emphasized how crucial it was to keep all of this discreet. Katie cornered Daphne to find out her secret after Zend left. Katie implied that creating potions and controlling individuals like Carter must be enjoyable after pretending to be discussing Daphne's sins. Ridge questioned Eric about his eye-catching stunt in the CEO's office. In an attempt to justify his behavior, Eric emphasized how Brooke was Ridge's future. Ridge didn't want to disappoint Taylor again, especially when she'd never let him down like Brooke had. Ridge brought up Brooke's CEO betrayal during the takeover, but Eric encouraged him to get past the memory. Eric claimed that she was prepared to forgive Ridge despite the ease with which he abandoned Brooke. In the end, Eric restated that Brooke was Ridge's future since he didn't want Ridge to continue blaming her. According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Eric hopes Ridge will change his mind. Keep checking back for more information on Ridge's decision. In the ever-changing world of Los Angeles fashion dynasties, Hope Logan had long been a symbol of poise and hope. However, what many people overlooked, or perhaps refused to see, was the astute intellect concealed beneath those placid blue eyes and cheery smiles. Many believed that her vocal support for the reconciliation of Brooke and Ridge's long-shattered relationship was the result of a daughter's wish to see her mother at last content and at peace, finally reunited with the man who had been her true love after years of emotional abuse and betrayal. Hope's admiration for Ridge's efforts, her tactful prodding for Brooke to forgive, and her strangely timed encounters with Ridge that gently nudged him in the direction of reconciliation all seemed sincere. Behind the well-polished exterior of familial loyalty, however, Hope was planning something much more ambitious. It was a well-thought-out plan to not only reunite her parents in name but also to put herself and the Logans back in the center of Forrester Creations with a plan that threatened to tip the entire power structure. Hope had been seen by the Forresters for far too long as a good-hearted artist, not a strategy, not a threat, and certainly not a participant in the high-stakes game of succession, power, and legacy. But Hope had learned from years of witnessing the struggle between the Logans and the Forresters, between Ridge and Brooke, and from enduring her own heartbreaks at the hands of men like Liam and Thomas. She had chosen to strike quietly at the most emotionally charged moment for Ridge, who was still in shock at Taylor's departure and Brooke's reluctant forgiveness, because she understood how power flowed in whispers and shadows. Her open endorsement of the reunion served as the ideal pretext. Ridge embraced Hope's warmth as a remedy for his numerous transgressions, and Brooke needed her daughter's affection to be restored. Behind the scenes, however, Hope was gradually changing allegiances, luring back former Forrester supporters who were fed up with Steffi's growing power and Thomas's precarious course. In order to make sure her Hope for the future brand was more than just a side project, she was discreetly meeting with designers. She offered suggestions for brand transformation, gently criticizing the stale legacy strategy that had prevailed under Ridge's direction while presenting a new, young vision that connected with the upcoming generation of influencers, producers, and consumers. She also recognized that having Brooke back in Ridge's life would make him less resistant to change, particularly when it came from someone he now considered a daughter, even though she never spoke it out loud. Hope's power came from the emotional glue that brought the family back together. More significantly, it provided her with access. Previously excluded from creative sessions, she started to push for seats and ask strategic questions about market trends, influencer partnerships, and production costs. Her readiness frequently caught the Forresters off guard. Hope was secretly constructing her Forrester comeback plan from the inside while the family was preoccupied with the romantic spectacle of Ridge and Brooke's slow-burning reunion, which was full of shared looks, nostalgic flashbacks, and symbolic gestures like Ridge drawing her face again. Although she was aware that her name did not carry the Forrester bloodline, she also understood that the boardrooms relied on creativity, profitability, and public perception rather than DNA. Hope presented herself as the brand's visionary and moral compass, someone who could guide Forrester into the future without undermining its heritage and who honored the past but was unconstrained by it. Behind closed doors, she began suggesting partnerships that would link the brand to social causes in an effort to appeal to the media and forward-thinking investors while also distancing the business from the antiquated perception of Forrester as a family-run fashion house that clings to outmoded names and ancient grudges. She was gradually pulling away from Liam at the same time, not out of drama or rage but rather with a detached clarity that made it difficult to feel guilty. She was aware that Liam's lack of commitment and his conflicted allegiance to Steffi and her had harmed her reputation in addition to causing her emotional pain. She had to get rid of the picture of the doormat in love if she wanted to get up. She therefore quietly changed her image to one of elegance, independence, and ambition. She began making solo appearances, delivering interviews that centered on her vision rather than her relationships, and dressing herself in a way that emphasized strength rather than gentleness. Liam had lost his significance in her story, thus she no longer needed him by her side. Ridge, Eric, Steffi, and Thomas were now the true players, and Hope was trying to outsmart them all. She wasn't doing it primarily for Brooke or even for retribution. She was acting on her profound realization that influence might be gained rather than passed on in a society where the Forresters always seemed to have the advantage. Additionally, her endorsement of the Brooke Ridge reunion served as the ideal smokescreen. She was buying herself more time and access each time she urged Brooke to forgive and see the best in Ridge. She gained Ridge's trust each time she publicly defended his decisions. Additionally, she was disarming the Forresters, who had become accustomed to viewing the Logans as emotional liabilities rather than strategic assets, each time she depicted Logan togetherness and peace. She would be too far inside the walls to be stopped by the time anyone noticed what she was doing. However, Hope may have overestimated the extent to which the Forresters continued to defend their own. Steffi, the ferocious defender of the family name, had started to notice the change after noticing Hope's unexpected calm in meetings, her ability to nudge discussions in the direction of creativity, and her nuanced criticisms of the leadership style. Even while he was unpredictable, Thomas also observed that Hope had shifted from soliciting his opinion to providing instructions. Even Eric, who was enchanted by her elegance, started to feel uneasy about how seamlessly she was assimilating into the Forrester brand without ever having to use the name. Hope's strategy was effective, but it was starting to attract notice. Once, in the corridor outside Ridge's office, Steffi approached her and accused her of using Brooke's happiness as a pretext for her own ambition. Hope remained unflinching. "Don't you think it's great when everyone wins?" she remarked with a simple smile. A statement that only made Steffi more suspicious. Hope, though, wasn't concerned. She had planned every action, every heartbeat, and every word about healing and family. The appearance of stability brought up by her mother's reconciliation allowed Hope to rewrite the story of power dynamics at Forrester. She wouldn't simply be a Logan working for a Forrester company if all went as planned. The lady who instilled compassion, strategy, and vision into a brand that had previously been dominated by ego and old grievances would be the impetus behind its next great age. The world would miss the true story, the quiet, bright, and brutal ascent of Hope Logan, while witnessing Brooke and Ridge fall in love once more. Eric's defense, Katie's confrontation, and Daphne's potion is at last here. Eric Forrester defends his choice in today's episode. Taylor Hayes, meanwhile, is shaken by Bridge. She's full of hope over with Brooke Logan. Additionally, Daphne Rose is confronted by Katie Logan regarding her potion. It rattled Taylor Hayes. While on the phone at home, Ridge Forrester concurs with the caller over Brooke's attractiveness. Ridge remembers Brooke's showstopper and Eric's speech. Taylor comes down the stairs and interrupts. Taylor believes the fashion show was the cause of Ridge's glow. Hold on, do males really glow? I'm going to presume a man is radioactive and run for my life if he glows. Ridge continues without telling Taylor that Brooke is the reason for his glow. They embrace for a long time. Taylor sits on the couch with Ridge. Jacqueline McInnes Wood's character Steffi Forrester Finnegan walks in with enormous white sunglasses. Steffi complains about being exhausted after the fashion show. Steffi comments that sales are up, according to Katie. Steffi mentions the comments made regarding the showstopper. Steffi raises an eyebrow, and Taylor feels uneasy. Ridge says he needs to go to the office after attempting to shift the topic. Steffi wants to spend time with her mother, therefore she will be there later. Steffi is pushed to the office by Taylor. Steffi remains focused and unwavering, Ridge and Brooke on the catwalk. Taylor acknowledges that she is aware of their past and is not gullible. Tridge is the endgame, in Steffi's opinion. Katie Logan is ecstatic. Katie and Eric are enjoying tea at Brooke's residence. According to Katie, there is still a buzz. Well done, Katie compliments Eric. They all alternately compliment and extol one another. Eric says he must go and sets down his tea. After the showstopper, Eric wants to know what Ridge thinks about Brooke. Even though Eric loves and respects Taylor, he still believes that Brooke is the right person for his kid. Even after Eric leaves, Katie continues to discuss the runway plan. Despite knowing that Ridge still went home with Taylor, Brooke is now optimistic. Katie mentions that Taylor and Steffi were present when it happened. They return to discussing Ridge and the magic of the situation. Katie believes that Ridge's feelings of betrayal are over. Taylor isn't going to give up, according to Brooke. Taylor may also recognize that Ridge is on the verge of reconnecting, according to Katie. To confront Ridge Forrester, Ridge requests that Eric shut the door at the office. Ridge used those exact words while discussing the jaw-dropping stunt. They argue over the stunt. Eric continues to believe that it was the proper course of action. Ridge is informed by the patriarch that he saw Brooke, his future, rather than a showstopper. Eric's tone somewhat softens as Ridge becomes heated. Ridge mentions that Brooke betrayed him by obtaining a job. Brooke did that for him, Eric explains. Although Eric points out that he did the same thing to Brooke, Ridge doesn't want to harm Taylor once more. Ridge should stop it, according to Eric, as Brooke is prepared to forgive him. According to Eric, he cannot continue to deny his future, it is with Brooke. The showstopper features Ridge's flashback to Brooke. Daphne sashays into Carter Walton's office at Forrester Creations. Daphne's wonderful idea for the fragrance makes the COO swoon. After the takeover, Daphne transforms it into a tirade about Carter returning the firm. He is unlike anyone she has ever encountered. Being a part of Carter's vision and the future makes Daphne very pleased. Carter is grateful that Daphne encouraged him to trust his instincts. Daphne is upset when Carter brings up Hope Logan, Annika Noel. The nose advises him to put Hope out of his mind. They must concentrate on what they can create together and their future. Carter backs off when Daphne tries to approach him. Read this, B&B spoilers for the next 3 weeks, Daphne's disappointment, Steffi's surprise, and Liam's final wish. Daphne Rose was found out. From a doorway, Zend Forrester Dominguez may be seen spying. While Spencer is searching for Carter, Zend interrupts. Zend asks Carter what he walked in on as he clumsily leaves. Zend mentions the near kiss. Daphne attempts to ignore it, but Zend doesn't fall for it. Are you really attracted to Carter? Even the nose is stunned by it. Katie listens in silence to what the two are saying. It just so happens that Zend mentions the plan that led her to FC. Zend agrees that Daphne needs that kept a secret, but only because it's not his place and would be detrimental to company at the moment. As he leaves, Zend makes it obvious that he is not happy with Daphne. Katie walks in and faces the nose. Katie remarks on how amazing it is that Daphne's fragrances are irresistible. What is it made of? No one seems to be able to identify it precisely. According to Katie, it must be enjoyable, similar to creating a potion. Daphne's eyes enlarge. Katie implies that Carter is being manipulated by the potion. Ridge was thinking about Brooke as he stood in Eric's living room. He recalled Eric's declaration that Brooke was Ridge's fate while they were on the gondola in Portofino. Ridge also recalled Brooke's appearance on the runway the previous evening. Before long, Taylor came down the stairs to congratulate Ridge on yet another great performance. She remarked, "I love to see you bask in the glow." In an attempt to put Brooke out of his mind, Ridge embraced Taylor. Acting as though she had not just learned of Liam's death, Steffi entered. She was ecstatic that the pre-sales were proceeding so smoothly after speaking with Katie. Ridge claimed it was all business, but Steffi pointed out that the show's reviews were sentimental. "Aren't you and Brooke being called the first couple of fashion?" Taylor responded. Ridge defended himself to the media. He said, "It would never change how I feel about you," in an unpersuasive manner. Steffi inquired about Taylor's well-being after Ridge departed for work. Her mother's discomfort over Ridge's gaze on Brooke was evident to her. Taylor assured Steffi that she wasn't insecure. She stated, "But I'm also not naive." Although Taylor was aware that her relationship with Ridge was in jeopardy, she refused to allow Brooke to re-enter Ridge's life. In Brooke's living room, Katie and Eric talked endlessly about the fashion show and how stunning Brooke looked in her iconic Portofino gown. After Eric made sure Brooke modeled the showstopper, Katie praised him on a job well done. "Hopefully, it did the trick and you two will be back together in no time," stated Eric. Eric told his sisters-in-law how wonderful he was again after Katie and Brooke complimented him on it, and then he informed them he had to leave for work. "I want to hear what Ridge has to say after seeing you in the surprise showstopper," Eric said. When Brooke and Katie were alone, Katie's only option was to boast about the fashion show's overwhelmingly positive social media reception. "I'm really talking about the posts about you and Ridge," admits Katie. Even though Ridge took Taylor home, Brooke acknowledged that it was very positive, the way he looked at me on the runway. Katie was telling her sister, "I think you need to prepare yourself that things are going to change." When the two of you locked eyes, it was extraordinary, she continued. Brooke was happy, too. "I have to say that when Ridge looked at me after all this time that we've been apart, it was pure magic," Brooke admitted. "That's how the audience perceived it," Katie noted. Brooke was practical, too. "Taylor isn't going to give up. She made that very clear when we were locked in the vault together," Brooke said. Katie was unconcerned. Katie was certain that Ridge was this close to going back to Brooke after the runway incident. Carter caught a smell of Daphne's perfume at Forrester Creations as she walked up to him. The fragrances were a perfect complement to the couture line. "That was all you," Carter said. Daphne maintained that the fashion show's success was Carter's fault. "It's clear that your expansion idea was instrumental to the success of the show. I am so happy to be a part of your vision now and into the future," Daphne exclaimed. Carter thanked Daphne for encouraging him to trust his instincts. Zend waited just outside the door. "We have to focus on the future and what you and I can build together," Daphne remarked. After making his presence known, Zend informed Carter that Will was trying to find him. Zend had some time alone with Daphne after Carter left to visit Will. "What did I just witness?" "It looked a lot like you moving in to kiss Carter," Zend said. "Daphne, do you actually have feelings for Carter?" he inquired. Daphne acknowledged that she was taken aback by her emotions. "That's not something I do. Fall for a guy," she replied. Then, with Katie watching and listening, Zend revealed the game. I am painfully aware of why you came to LA. I know all about your plot with Steffi to break up Hope and Carter, he said. Daphne acknowledged that she truly had feelings for Carter. Zend cautioned Daphne and vowed not to reveal to Carter why she had actually traveled to Los Angeles. If this gets out, it will affect more than just you and Carter, added Zend. Katie went over to ask Zend what was in her perfume after she left. It must be like making a potion. Something used to manipulate someone. Someone like Carter Walton, she laughed. Eric later discovered Ridge working on further designs in his office. In order to speak with his father, Ridge asked Eric to shut the door. When Ridge remarked, I want to ask you about this showstopper stunt you pulled, Eric smiled. Ridge disliked being caught off guard. In that gown, Eric said he saw awe, admiration, and love in Ridge. Despite Eric's insistence that it was the right thing to do, and I'd do it again, Ridge remained irritated. Eric was unconcerned. You didn't just see a woman in a showstopper. You saw what's in your heart, Eric said. Ridge assured Eric that he had promised Taylor and had no intention of breaking it. I hurt this woman so much in her whole life. I'm not going to do it anymore, Ridge maintained. Though Taylor wasn't Brooke, Eric acknowledged that he respected Ridge's devotion to her. And I am glad for that. Because she's never let me down. She's never betrayed me, Ridge yelled. Eric countered. You have to take responsibility for that, Eric said, adding that Brooke was prepared to forgive him. Brooke's heart was broken, too. You cannot deny that your future is with Brooke, Eric continued. Brooke was confident in her living room, telling herself, soon, Ridge, soon. Nothing could have prepared Hope Logan for the devastating realization that Liam, the man who had promised her stability, loyalty, and a way out of the toxic cycle of betrayal that characterized their past, had cheated on her once more. Hope Logan had experienced heartbreak before, the kind that shaved away your dignity and left only the brittle shell of someone who once believed in forever. The symptoms were minor at first, a change in his demeanor, an overcompensation in his speech, practiced kisses, and touches that lingered with shame for an excessive amount of time. She was more familiar with Liam's telltale signs than anyone else, including his tendency to falter when attempting to over-explain, his flimsy insistence that everything was just fine, and his overly casual defense of Steffi's choices even when they were obviously inappropriate. Despite her long-held suspicion that a man who falters once will always falter again, Hope had allowed herself to think that this time was different and that the suffering they had endured had finally created something indestructible. However, the reality arrived like a storm, as it usually does. She had one unintentional voicemail on her phone, and it was his voice. Her name was not stated, but the distinct sense of shame, panting whispering, and bed linens in the background, all of which confirmed what her instincts had been screaming. The betrayal was painful not just because it included Steffi once more but also because it involved Liam, her Liam, the man who had promised to change and who had stood on the brink of divorce court before bringing her back with tearful declarations of self-reflection and recommitment. Hope, however, did not spiral this time. She didn't pass out. She hardened instead. Instead of giving him the gratification of a yelling match or a dramatic exit, she went within and shrouded herself in quiet. She refrained from crying in public. She didn't plead. As Hope's heart broke, she was also uncovering a deeper betrayal that she hadn't really allowed herself to face until the dust of Liam's affair settled into cold, heavy clarity. This was something Liam didn't know, and nobody else did either. It was Carter. Even more deeply than Liam's adultery, Carter Walton, the stable, trustworthy, and endearing man who had been her confidant and her escape route from the pandemonium, had betrayed her because he knew. He was aware of Liam's extramarital affair. He was in the same room as Liam and Steffi at a late-night strategy meeting that resulted in booze and hazy boundaries, and he knew weeks before Hope did, but he remained silent. Not to Ridge. Not to Brooke. Don't hold out hope. Even worse, Carter positioned himself as Hope's anchor, the one man who made her feel seen without passing judgment, while Liam was gaslighting and cheating. At midnight, he texted her to check in. When things appeared tense with Liam, he gave her his shoulder. He accompanied her on walks around the Forrester estate, discussing everything and nothing. He was always cautious to maintain the boundaries of friendship, but he allowed just enough emotional closeness to bleed through so that she was left wondering. How could Hope have failed to see Carter's appeal? Every lady in their group had either loved him, lost him, or both. However, he had been the only one who appeared to be untarnished by scandal and who had never exploited his closeness for selfish ends, so she had believed him. The true betrayal was that trust. Carter's facade broke when she faced him, her eyes piercing with accusation, her voice cool but firm. Hope recognized his fumbling over apologies. "I didn't want to hurt you, and I thought Liam would tell you himself," as cowardice disguised as care. Liam, not her, had been protected by Carter. Truth for a woman who believed in him had been sacrificed for loyalty to a flawed friend. Furthermore, the betrayal was existential rather than merely personal. Hope had always lived in a murky world, surrounded by scandals and molded by disorder, but she had clung to the idea that trust might be holy once it was earned. When she discovered that even the nice ones were involved in the falsehoods, that belief was broken. Hope didn't crumble in the days that followed. She adjusted herself. She arrived to work early. She didn't say much, but when she did, it had a fresh abrasiveness. She stopped engaging in small chat and loitering at meetings. Her style changed. She stopped wearing flowing silhouettes and flowers, bold colors and crisp lines. She began giving orders instead of requesting permission. The lady who used to tread carefully to maintain harmony with Liam, Steffi, and even Thomas was no longer there. And Carter, who had formerly been at her side like a silent protector, was now outside her sphere, seeing her ascent from a distance he could no longer cross. Ridge became aware of the shift. Steffi did, too. Her metamorphosis worried even Thomas, whose own fixation with Hope had once obscured everything. But since power is tangible once it is regained, nobody spoke. Hope started refocusing her energies on hope for the future, transforming the collection into a vehicle for both her and the brand's transformation as well as fashion. No longer worried about popularity, she made choices that broke through bureaucratic red tape, confronted Eric when he attempted to limit her vision, and argued with Steffi over expanding her market. She also started forming her own connections behind the scenes, including with outside financiers, younger influencers, and even media personalities who had previously written her off as just another Logan legacy carrying on her mother's reputation. They had no idea what she had endured. However, they witnessed her transformation. Gradually, the headlines changed. Logan Power redefined, from betrayal to boss, Hope Logan finds her voice. Liam, meantime, made a valiant effort to win her back by sending her love poems, leaving her flowers, and pleading with her to recall the old times. What about Carter? He said nothing. For a time. He waited for her in the conference room one evening, long after the facility had been cleared out. He was a lone man with a practiced apology and a heart in his hand, waiting in dim light. He admitted to her that he had erred, that he still thought about her every day, and that he had wanted to protect her but was unsure how. Hope, however, did not even sit down as she stood in the doorway wearing a black tailored blazer. "You didn't just lie by omission," she said after giving him a long look. "You allowed me to construct a future in a burning house. Carter, that isn't protection. That is betrayal." She then left, not in anger but with poise, authority, and complete control over her story for the first time in years. She didn't require retribution. To fill the emptiness, she didn't need a new boyfriend. What she needed, what she at last had, was herself, complete and unflinching, no longer characterized by the men who professed to love her but never made the decision to pick her when it counted most. And a new chapter began as the sun set over Forrester Creations. It was not Hope Logan's sad demise, but rather the unwavering ascent of the woman who discovered that betrayal doesn't break you. It makes clear who you should never have trusted in the first place.